I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in UK test part 503 or 30. And that while doing leg stretching. And if you participate in the leg stretching, that's at your own risk. So let's start with the leg stretching. We are bringing one leg in front with the heel onto the ground and we're pulling the toes in. And now we're going to contract from time to time the quad muscles. So pull the toes in and we're starting with contracting of the quad muscles. So we already had done it all, and now we're going through the book and looking for a little topic about which we can shoot a separate video, which we then say down in one little presentation what we learned. So the next thing will be then here, great British inventions of the 20th century. And we already learned them quite well. So the first thing was the television, 1920s developed. That was John Logie Baird, 1932, the first successful broadcasting from London to Glasgow. And the next thing was the radar, and we're releasing the contraction, but we're giving the leg here, but keep pulling the toes in. And that was Sir Robert Watson Watt. And in 1935 was the first test of the radar. Then there was Bernard Lovell, who at Cheshire, at Joddlebank, there was Sir Bernard Lovell, who in Cheshire at Joddlebank built the greatest radio telescope in the world at the time, and it's still in use, and we're contracting again. And then there is, I don't know who this is, Alan Turing with the Turing machine in the 1930s. And the Turing machine is important for the beginning of computers. And then there is also in the 1930s was the jet engine. We just haven't read it in the one line. In the 1930s also the jet engine, Sir Frank Whittle. And the next thing, then there was John McLeod, 1953, co-discovered insulin. Then there was John McLeod, who co-discovered insulin to treat diabetes. We're releasing a last time the contraction, but keeping the stretch. And then, I'm wondering all the time, there's a long section here, and I don't know what it's about, the DNA. And the structure of the DNA was discovered, let's make that again. London and Cambridge was, so what was that here? The splitting of atom, that was Manchester and Cambridge, okay. So in London and in Cambridge, there was 1953, the structure of the DNA contracted the last time. Structure of the DNA, it was discovered. Structure of the DNA molecule, of the DNA discovered, and Francis Crick was one of these people. I guess it isn't written like that exactly here, but was one of those who wanted the Nobel Prize. So Francis Crick got the Nobel Prize for it, and we're changing the leg, the other leg, what is it called? The leg in front, and we're putting the toes in, and we're contracting the quad muscles. And what was then there? Then there was Sir Christopher Cochrane. He invented the hovercraft in the 1950s. Did I skip something? No. Then the Concorde passenger airplane, a commercial airliner, a supersonic passenger aircraft, a plane, a supersonic passenger airliner, and that did first fly in 1969. They're releasing the contraction, but we're keeping the stretch for the toes. And it carried passengers from 1976 until 2003. It first flew in 1969. Then there is the Harrier jumper jet. I think I'm going to skip that one. Or forget that one. Accidentally skip it. We're contracting again the quad muscles. So then there was the Harrier jumper jet, now date. And then the cash dispensing ATM. And there's the cash dispensing ATM machine that was developed by James Goodfellow, and first was installed at Barclay Banks in London in 1967. And then there was the in vitro fertilization in 1978 that were Robert Steptoe and Patrick Steptoe, Robert Edwards, Patrick Steptoe, Sir Robert Edwards. REG stepped down Sir Robert Edwards. In vitro fertilization 1978. The release of contraction for last time. And when there was in 1996, done by Sir Ian Wilmot and Keith Campbell, the cloning of a mammal. And it was Dolly the sheep. And we're contracting the last time the quad muscles and we're putting it out. And Sir Peter Mansfield did the MRI machine, the magnetic resonance machine. No date. No date to that, and also to Harrier jumper jet, no date. Insulin also not. And to the next exercise, we anchor chain stability test. One leg to the outside, the torso pointing forward. The other from the middle part of the body frontal, and we're pressing a bit into the ground with the leg. And when the World Wide Web on Christmas Eve, on the 25th December 1990, was the first time something transferred over the World Wide Web, developed by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. Okay. Now we're going to prepare another video, because I don't want to show it when we're doing the leg stretching. No, not my piece leg stretching exercise. Okay, problems and the economy in the 70s. In the late 70s, the post-war economic boom came to an end. Release a bit of a contraction to give you like that. Prices of goods and raw materials began to rise sharply, and the exchange rate between the pound and other currencies was unstable. This caused problems with the balance of payments. Imports of goods were valued at more than the price paid for exports. Many industries and services were affected by strikes, and this caused problems between the trade unions and the government. People began to argue that the unions were too powerful and that their activities were harming the UK. Press the last time into the ground. In the 70s was also a time of serious unrest in Northern Ireland. In 72, the Northern Ireland Parliament was suspended, and Northern Ireland was directly ruled by the UK government. Some 3,000 people lost their lives in the decade after 69 in the violence in Northern Ireland. So the part about Ireland did we have half when we made the video about the partition of Ireland, and the rest will then maybe mentioned in when we're talking about the Northern Ireland Assembly or the devolved administration. We're going to make two videos, one about the Northern Ireland Assembly and one about all four. And all three. Leg to the outside, and we're pressing again into the ground. Now the other thing, I don't think we can make a video about it. We will go on, but when we're talking about Margaret Thatcher, and there's something about the trade unions, maybe we're going to mention what is written here. And also the other thing we'll keep in mind, if there's more to the economy, maybe we can do one video about it. Mary Peters, did we already do the video? Europe and the common market. And release the contraction a bit, but keep the leg bit. West Germany, France, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands formed the European Economic Community, EEC, 1957. The EEC became a part of the European Union when it was formed in 1993. Press again into the ground, the last time. The UK was a full member of the European Union but did not use the euro currency. The UK formally left the European Union on the 31st January 2020. We will not do a video about that. Maybe we will use these informations when we have in here a little bit more. What is it here? The Conservative Party won a majority at the general election of 7th May 2015, and David Cameron remained Prime Minister. The Conservative government called a referendum on the UK's membership of the European Union. This was held on the 23rd June 2016. The UK voted by a margin of 51.9% to 48.1% to leave the European Union. Next exercise. Leg to the outside, hydraulic cartwheel. Flex foot, and we're bringing it up. And again down. David Cameron was succeeded as Prime Minister after the referendum by Theresa May on the 13th of July 2016. She in turn was succeeded by Boris Johnson on the 24th July 2019. The UK formally left the European Union on the 31st January 2020. We will do one video about the Brexit. Yes, one very short video. But will be, if you see the video now published, maybe a little bit too less information. These are just very broad things. But if you're looking back, maybe in 10, 20, 30 years, that will be enough for all the other what we had with the Act with 70 and 72 and 33 and the other ones more. And the other thing to the outside. This is enough if we just say what happened and also how many people voted. So we're going to do one video about the Brexit, and there we're going to mention nothing of it. That isn't possible. I don't know what the convention is. Yes, we hear the currency of the pound, and that maybe a bit of it. Okay, now we're doing that exercise a few times more, and then we're having around 4 minutes. In these 4 minutes, we try to do for the first take the inventions. These are quite a lot and many, and it wouldn't do no harm if we're gonna try it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we are doing that here last time with an egg, another time. And now I go and start a second camera next to that one. Now I try to say what we learned about the inventions. Some British inventions of the 20th century. For example, in the 1920s did, not John McLeod, John Lloyd Baird. Some British inventions. Some British inventions of the 20th century. In the 1920s did John Lloyd Baird develop the television, and in 1932 the first broadcast was made from London to Glasgow. Also, in the 1930s there was in 1935 the first test of a radar station. There was Sir Robert Watson Watt, who had the idea that radio signals could be used to detect airplanes. Also in the 1930s was the jet engine developed by Sir Frank Whittle. Was it Frank Whittle? I can't find the jet engine. Yeah, Sir Frank Whittle. Okay, we can try one more take, I think. Some British inventions of the 20th century. In the 1920s did John Lloyd Baird developed the television, and that was firstly successfully tested with broadcasts from London to Glasgow in 1932. Also in the 1930s, there was the jet engine developed by Sir Frank Whittle. And in 1935, there was the first successful test for radio signals at a radio station to detect airplanes. And that person was who had the idea to use these radio signals was Sir Robert Watson Watt. And then there was Alan Turing, and he built the Turing machine, also in the 1930s, and that is the basis in many ways for modern computers, the Turing machine. Then was insulin co-discovered by John McLeod, and that is used to treat diabetes. And the Concorde supersonic airplane was developed by Britain and France, and that was firstly tested in 1969 and was then used from 1976 until 2003. And the structure of the DNA was in London, and Manchester, and Cambridge. It was Cambridge. We don't have any time, I think, to go through all them. I explained it in a different way when I did it the other times. I'm more leading through it, and I'm more saying what I want to say in the 1930s, and I'm not starting with a fact I know, but I'm starting to tell the things, and it's not completely in order. But I think that's good. We will continue with that. We have just 1 minute left, so I can't do it in this video. It's not a problem if we're gonna need 2-3 videos, so 5-6 days for it, at least in total, so not just the first 2 days. Let's do 1 minute a little longer. The structure of the DNA was discovered in 1953 in London and Cambridge University, and there was a British person who got a Nobel Prize for that, and that was Francis Crick. The structure of the DNA molecule, 1953 discovered. And then there is the cash dispensing ATM machine that was developed by James Goodfellow, and firstly then installed at Barclay Bank in London in 1967. And there is the Harrier jumper jet airplane, which can start vertically off. There we had also no date. But the Hoovercraft was developed in the 1950s by Sir Christopher Cockerell. And the IVF therapy, the in vitro fertilization therapy, was done in 1978 by Patrick Steptoe, and Sir Robert Edwards. Was there anything more? No, just that. The first child like that, born 1978. Okay, the first child born 1978. And Peter Mansfield, the MRI, no date. And then Sir Ian Wilmot Keith Campbell Clowning, Dolly, 1969, the last word with the Christmas Sir Tim Berners-Lee. I thank you very much, and until next time.